Hello, listeners. This is Kat, and welcome back to Put Your Hands Up Podfics. This will be the continuation of Little Acts of Kindness. This will be Part 24, Chapter 24, entitled The Finals, Part 2. Izuku was currently sitting in the waiting room, thinking about his upcoming match with Monoma. Currently, Hatsume and Yaoyorozu were fighting, with Hatsume having once more taken over the speakers and was advertising her babies. Honestly, after the first couple, Izuku had started tuning her out. Though it seemed like Yaoyorozu was putting up a good fight, if Mike's occasional cut-in was any indication. He seemed to mostly cut in when Yaoyorozu pulled off a particularly clever dodge, or created something that managed to stop something Hatsume used. After about 10 minutes after the round started, Hatsume willingly stepped out of bounds. 5 minutes later, and he was standing at the edge of the threshold. On to our next fight. We have Midoriya Izuku versus Monoma Nato. The two walked out and bowed to each other. Start! Instantly, before Izuku even had a chance to activate Erasure, Monoma used some sort of quirk that made the air shimmer for a moment. Still having been activating the quirk, he stared at Monoma. Even as the boy activated another quirk, Erasure not affecting him for some reason. Izuku shifted and saw the way the air shimmered in front of Monoma for a moment as he moved, yet when he became still, he couldn't see it. Ha! As I suspected, you need a direct line of sight in order to erase my quirk. Even something as simple as an invisible barrier prevents you from erasing my quirk, Monoma stated, a smug look on his face. Izuku ran to the side, trying to get around the barrier, but Monoma stopped using the scales and made another barrier, doing this for all sides as Izuku tried to outrun it. But then the boy was surrounded by it, protected in a bubble. How do you plan to win, if you can't attack me? Izuku questioned, blinking to let his eyes rest for a moment. Monoma froze. Damn, I should have grabbed a long-range quirk. The boy laughed. Next time I'll remember that. But I'll still beat you, Midoriya. Izuku charged forward, activating Erasure again, even as he went to punch the barrier. Before he reached it, Monoma made another barrier. Izuku shattered the first one and went to punch the second, only for Monoma to make a third. He paused after that, knowing that Monoma would just keep making them. Distantly he heard Mike making announcements. Izuku knew that, as it was going, he wouldn't be able to win. But Monoma couldn't win either like this. Right now it would be a waiting game, but that would be boring and a long wait, most likely. If he couldn't use Erasure, and he couldn't get close, that left him with One for All. When you use One for All, you said you sent it to parts of the body where you needed it. Have you tried distributing it throughout your body? Izuku remembered what Gran Torino had told him. But if he used it... When you get released, you cannot break any more of your bones. If you do, I won't be able to heal it. So be careful or you could lose the use of that limb. If he ended up breaking his bones, then he would once again be back in the cast, for who knew how long, while his stamina recovered enough for Recovery Girl to heal him. It could be months. Was it worth the risk? It seems that Midoriya and Monoma are at a standoff. Monoma can't attack Midoriya without coming out from his cover, and Midoriya can't break through the barriers fast enough to get to Monoma. Why don't you save us the trouble of waiting around forever and give up? Monoma questioned. No, Izuku answered, shaking his head. Looks like we're waiting then, Monoma said, and the two stared at each other. Or rather, Monoma stared at him, and Izuku decided that it was worth the risk. After all, he had to prove that he belonged in the hero course, prove that he had potential. He reached for the feeling of One for All, and instead of pushing it to one limb, he distributed it throughout his body, focusing on keeping the amount low. Monoma's eyes widened. Izuku ran forward, nearly surprising himself with how much faster he was, and he punched the invisible barrier even as Monoma desperately tried to put up another one. The force of the punch broke the invisible barrier easily, and all the others Monoma had surrounded himself with. The punch continued forward and it hit Monoma straight in the chest, who was sent flying back out of bounds. Izuku deactivated One for All quickly, feeling how it fluctuated, and his bones groaned in protest. Midoriya wins! Mike called out. Izuku walked over to Monoma and helped the boy up. I can't believe I forgot you said you had 2 quirks copied. Man, why didn't you start with that quirk? If I'm not careful, it'll break my bones, Izuku responded, even as they exited. Well, I suppose that's a good reason to be careful then. We should talk more about how our copying works sometimes. I'm curious if we have the same limitations, Monoma said. But next time, I'm going to beat you for sure. They walked back and took their seats with their classmates as Mike announced the next fighters. Next we have Tokoyami Fumikage versus Shinso Itoshi. The two stepped on stage. Start. And it looks like Tokoyami is starting out strong with his dark shadow relentlessly targeting Shinso, who is dodging like crazy. This carried on for a bit before everything seemed to freeze for a moment, then... Whoa! It looks like Dark Shadow has gone out of control. He is now targeting Tokoyami, and the tables are turned with Tokoyami having to dodge. Shinso rushes in now, attacking in tandem with Dark Shadow. Oh, and it looks like Tokoyami has stepped out of bounds. Shinso wins! As soon as the 5 minutes grace period ended, Tokoyami came up. What happened? Kaminari asked. Shinso's quirk worked on Dark Shadow. Tokoyami answered. I'm sorry, Fumikage, the shadow said, looking dejected. You didn't know, Izuku said hesitantly, patting the shadow as Tokoyami took a seat next to him. The shadow nuzzled into his hand, seeming to like the attention. Midoriya speaks true. Next time we clash, we will know better than to speak to him. Start, Mike announced, and the two looked to see Bakugo and Kirishima start their fight. Both of the boys charged at each other, Kirishima using his hardening to protect himself against Bakugo's explosions. Kirishima released a flurry of blows. Bakugo struggles to stand up to Kirishima's brutal attacks. Wait, it seems Bakugo's recovered and is now releasing his own rapid explosions. Ooh, did Kirishima feel that last hit? Mike called out as Kirishima seemed to clutch his side. Now it seems that Bakugo is taking the offensive with rapid, powerful hits, Mike announced. Before the smoke had even a chance to clear, Midnight's voice cut in. Kirishima is knocked out. Bakugo wins, Mike announced. We'll have a short 15-minute break before moving on to round 3. Izuku nodded to his classmates and went to get a snack from a vending machine before his match was up. He was going against Yaoyorozu. His best bet to winning would be cutting off her quirk before she could make anything. Now for the first match of the 3rd round, Yaoyorozu Momo versus Midoriya Izuku. The two stepped forward. Start. Momo pulled out a bottle before Izuku could activate Erasure. She rushed forward, aiming the bottle at him. Izuku didn't know what was in it, but knew it wouldn't be good, so he tried to dodge out of the way as she pulled the trigger. A large gaseous cloud exploded out of the bottle. He took a breath, holding it even as he backed away as far as he could. Izuku winced, as inevitably a bit of it hit him, and immediately his skin started to feel like it was burning. Izuku felt his eyes watering as they burned, and he closed them. No longer able to hold his breath, he took in a breath, and his throat burned as some of the gas got into his throat. I pepper-sprayed you, Midoriya. You'll probably want to see Recovery Girl. Izuku just nodded as his eyes and mouth continued burning. Give, he coughed out. Yaoyorozu wins! Here, let me walk you to her temp office, Yaoyorozu offered. He just nodded, and the two walked in silence as Izuku kept his eyes closed, every attempt to open them making the burning feeling worse. When they arrived, Recovery Girl started to rinse his eyes out and his skin. All right, everyone, it's time for the final fight in the 3rd round to determine our finalists, Bakugo Katsuki versus Shinso Hitoshi. Start, Mike announced, his voice coming over the speakers, a TV playing the fight. Bakugo starts out with a strong charge. That looked like it hurt. Shinso is blasted out of the arena with a swift blow. Bakugo wins. There will be a 10-minute break, and then we will have a fight to determine the 3rd-place winner, and then our finalist. Recovery Girl spent another 5 minutes rinsing off the pepper spray. His skin was still burning, but it wasn't as bad as it was before. But now, he had to get going towards the entrance to make sure he was on time. Hitoshi was in a state of disbelief. He had made it to the top 4, and this next fight was going to determine if he was in 3rd place or 4th. His classmates were praising him. The crowd was cheering him on. His opponent was a boy who had what seemed like 2 quirks, but was in fact a copying quirk. The here student didn't seem to hide his use of Eraserhead's erasure, but the only other quirk he showed looked to be some sort of strength enhancement, which, obviously, was the quirk the boy used to get into UA through the stupid entrance exam. And now, to determine our 3rd-place winner, Midoriya Izuku versus Shinso Hitoshi. The two walked forward, meeting each other on the stage. They bowed. Hitoshi eyed up the boy, wondering what type of person Midoriya was, how he could get the green-haired boy to speak. Start! The boy looked nervous, but the boy always looked like that every time Hitoshi spotted him. This was also the same kid that had gotten injured in the villain attack. Immediately after the call, Midoriya was looking at him with red eyes, preventing his quirk. That was fine. Hitoshi just needed to get the boy's guard to drop. So, you're the kid who got hurt in the USJ fight. Tell me, is it true that you were the only one who actually fought the villains? Your quirk won't work, the boy stuttered in response, even as they attacked each other. Hitoshi narrowed his eyes. What? Just because I'm talking, I must be trying to use my quirk? The boy shifted, blinking a moment, but reactivated the quirk right away. They once more traded a series of punches. We're in a fight, Midoriya squeaked out. Well, that was fair. Still, it didn't seem like the current tactic was working, perhaps. Must be nice to have everything handed to you, Midoriya Izuku. What? Erasure was still being used, but Hitoshi pressed on. Thanks to the nature of my quirk, I couldn't enter the Golden Gates in the normal manner. You wouldn't get that. You're naturally blessed. Hitoshi scoffed, glaring at Midoriya, who had blinked in surprise, staring at him with wide, shocked eyes. You people, born with your awesome, heroic quirks. Getting to follow all of your dreams, you never had to face a single hardship in your life. Midoriya still hadn't reactivated his quirk as he replied with a shocked, That... Hitoshi didn't need anything more as he took control of Midoriya. Walk out of bounds. He watched in anticipation and hope with each step closer Midoriya got to the edge. Then the boy stepped over. Shinso Hitoshi wins, taking 3rd place. As soon as he was declared the winner, he released his hold on the kid, who didn't even turn around as he just walked straight towards the exit. Man, what a sore loser. He could have at least done the traditional bow for showing a good fight. Hitoshi promptly put it out of his mind as the cheers of the crowd deafened him. He walked towards his own respective exit. You deserve to be a hero. Yeah, you were awesome, Shinso. You're the shining star of the general studies guys. You took 3rd place, dude. There's no way they won't let you into the hero course now. Just don't forget about us, general ed students. More and more of his classmates spoke up, cheering for him, encouraging him to be a hero. It was overwhelming. For so long people had assumed he would be a villain, and here he was proving them wrong. He was going to be a hero. A ring of a phone caused him to look over his shoulder, to see Midnight answering it, her mic turned off and a confused look on her face. He could barely make out parts of what she was saying. Why? To know. Well, think it matters. Shinso said. Lines of Midoriya being blessed with his quirk. Yue and that he... Hardship. Eraser. Hello? Hitoshi frowned, wondering why Eraser had wanted to know what he said to Midoriya, and why the teacher thought it was important enough to ask Midnight right away. It wasn't that big of a deal, just something to rile the hero student up. It had obviously worked. He shrugged and went back to his seat, giving a hesitant smile, as his classmates clapped him on the back and congratulated him. Now, it's time for what you've all been waiting for, the grand finale, the creation genius Yaoyorozu Momo versus the explosive fighter Bakugo Katsuki. The two stepped forward. Start! Hitoshi watched, tuning out Mike's commentary as Yaoyorozu pulled out what looked to be a fire extinguisher. She sprayed it at Bakugo, who tried to dodge. She still managed to hit him a bit, and she, almost immediately, had the explosion seeming to decrease in size noticeably. She kept spraying him, keeping him at a distance, and eventually he was completely covered in foam and the explosions were barely pops. Even from his seat, Hitoshi could make out how the boy was swearing at her, telling her to give him a real fight. The girl and him entered some hand-to-hand for a moment before she pinned the arrogant, crass blonde to the ground. Bakugo is immobilized. Yaoyorozu takes 1st place, President Mike screamed into the microphone, causing Hitoshi to wince and rub at his ears. In just a few minutes, we'll be doing the award ceremony. Hitoshi went down and met up in the waiting room with Yaoyorozu, who was sitting with her legs crossed and sipping on tea, and Bakugo, who was glaring at her, pops coming from his hand. Soon ectoplasm came and directed them onto the 3 spots. Once they were in position, there was a rumble and the platforms were being raised as Midnight spoke. Now let's move on to the award ceremony. Yaoyorozu stood calmly in number 1. Bakugo was standing in the number 2 spot, glaring but not saying anything. Hitoshi just stood on number 3. Looking at the crowd, he heard the cheering and clapping and still couldn't wrap his head around the fact that he had made it all the way to 3rd place. In 3rd place, we have Shinso Hitoshi. In 2nd, we have Bakugo Katsuki. And in 1st, we have Yaoyorozu Momo. Now, for the medals, presenting them this year is... You know who. He's everyone's hero. I am here with the medals. All Might. I cut you off. Sorry. Hitoshi stared as All Might came up to him and smiled. Congratulations, Shinso. You're a strong kid, and I bet you'll make a fine hero. Then the number 1 pulled him into a hug, and Hitoshi refused to let the tears fall. All Might, the number 1. He said that he thought Hitoshi could become a hero. It was like a dream come true. All Might moved on and congratulated each of the other two, quietly speaking words with each of them as he did. Then they were dismissed and the sports festival came to a close. Hitoshi walked out, going through the halls to gather his stuff, but paused when he heard the faint sound of sniffles. He paused, turning towards the door they were coming from, and edged closer, wondering if he should attempt to comfort the person who was behind it, or just move on as if it wasn't any of his business. As he got closer, he heard a voice faintly speak. "Don't say that, kiddo. Shinso doesn't know what he is talking about, doesn't know what your life is like. You do belong here. You fought hard." "But I'm only good for—" "Don't you dare say that. What Nashi told you was a lie. He just wanted to make you feel bad. Midoriya, I know today has been difficult, but it's going to be okay, kid. That guy can't hurt you anymore. Nezu's texted me that he's behind bars. You're safe now. Hizashi and I are here for you." There was a moment of silence. "Of course, kiddo, whenever you're ready. I'll text Hizashi, let him know it'll be a few minutes." Hitoshi took this as his sign to leave, puzzling over what he had overheard. But it just didn't make sense. Something about him not knowing something about Midoriya, then something about another guy called Nashi who hurt Midoriya and was now behind bars, apparently. What did that have to do with him? How did the topic go from something he said to some guy in prison? He went home to a silent house and sat on his laptop, preparing to go watch some videos and relax a bit. He smiled a bit as he saw the top news article being about the winners of the sports festival, and his face looking out on the third-place podium. Hitoshi was about to click off the website when he noticed another article. "Pedophile caught assaulting a student at UA Sports Festival." He clicked on it and read the article. It basically just kept repeating that same information, as it didn't reveal who the victim was or who caught the guy, but it did reveal the guy's name and a picture. Nashi Doi. Hitoshi felt sick. If that was the same Nashi that Eraserhead had mentioned, then Midoriya had been hurt, had been sexually assaulted, and had still chosen to participate in the sports festival. He reread the article and noticed it mentioned that the guy was a teacher at Alderan Junior High. That name feeling familiar, he frowned. For some reason, the sludge incident came to mind, so he researched the article. Blah, blah, blah. Bingo. Bakugo and an unnamed quirkless kid was involved in the incident. Both students attend Alderan Junior High. Hitoshi skimmed through the rest of the article, but then saw one of the photos. It showed heroes around Bakugo, and off the clip, half cut out, was a green-haired kid. The back was facing the shot, but that hair looked exactly like Midoriya's, which meant Midoriya went to Alderan, the same place as the pedophile, and given how likely it was that if the guy attacked him once, then he attacked him before. "You never faced a hardship in your life." Hitoshi's own words echoed in his head. Fuck. He really had put his foot in his mouth. He would have to apologize to Midoriya next time he saw the kid. All right, listeners, this concludes Chapter 24 of Little Acts of Kindness. Chapter 25 will be up next. Hope you all are still enjoying, and as always, thank you so much for listening.